Cartier Santos was the men's first ever wristwatch back in 1911. Granted, it doesn't look very much like the original version, but they have got an absolute classic on their hands. I'm really, really excited for this one. So if you watched some of previous videos, you know that I'm in the hunt for a major watch. Rolex, possibly. In an ideal world, it would be that. But with the difficulty of actually buying one at retail, I'm starting to look a little further afield. And if I'm wanting something with heritage, with history, with brand recognition that could go toe-to-toe in a way with Rolex for everything that Rolex have done, well, what better place to start than the men's first ever wristwatch? Absolutely glorious piece, and it's got a ton of positives about it. But it's funny that back in 1911, this was the men's first ever wristwatch. Wristwatches were deemed feminine and only for ladies back in the day. Men wore pocket watches, but not anymore. How the tides have changed. First place I'm going to start is the crown. Not the obvious place to start, but once you take a look at it and you see that there's a big sapphire sat on the top of it, that's right. We're talking precious gems, and it's a 7-sided crown, and there's a sapphire just about on all Cartier watches, and it's just pure decadence. There's absolutely no need to put a precious gem on this watch for any other reason than to make it luxurious, and it stands out and it does its job. Just like if you had hour markers that are made out of diamonds, totally unnecessary. It's all about luxury, all about that nice vibe that it gives you, and the crown just is a really great starting point for making this watch look amazing. Now, this watch doesn't just look pretty, it's quite technologically advanced in terms of being able to change the strap out quickly. You don't need any tools anymore, you just need rather a pointy fingernail or maybe a toothpick or something like that, and you just pop it and off it comes, and it is genuinely so easy. Now, as you've probably guessed from looking, that cancels out any aftermarket straps, but you do get a blue leather strap with this Cartier Santos, and in all honesty, it's nice, but I'm never taking it on the bracelet. If I buy this watch, it's just a bracelet type of watch. Iconic looking on the bracelet. The bracelet is real quality. And on top of the easy quick link change that you've got for the strap changes, something even more advanced, more clever. Yes, it is. And it's the fact that you can change the links, as I say, by just popping it and away you go. You just push the button, flick it up, and it comes out. Now, that is great, and I think if you watch a lot of videos about Cartier Santos, they bang on about it quite a lot with it being inventive and ingenious, and it is, but it's kind of overplayed as well, because if you buy the watch, the guy in the shop will probably do it for you, and you'll never do it again. So what? Yeah, it's a little bit easier, and you can do it at home if you want, but once you've got the fit, you've got the fit, it's going to fit your waist, or it's going to give you jangle, so they don't do half links either. That is something to consider, guys. Now, as glorious as this watch is, as beautiful as this watch is, it's actually a little bit difficult to read. Now, it's got a curved sapphire crystal, and I don't think it's got any anti-reflective coating on there. And for that reason, with the blingy bezel as well, is really shiny. It catches the light in an absolutely glorious way, and it's for people at the other end of the room or people that I'm dining with or having a chat with, my watch will stand out a treat to them and it'll look fantastic. But actually, for the purposes of telling time, it's a little bit more tricky than I want it to be. Not the end of the world, because telling time when you're buying a luxury item like this with sapphires and the Cartier brand, how high up the list of importance is it? Yeah, you want it to be able to tell the time, you want it to be accurate, but do you know what I mean by that? It's not as important, and actually the vibe you get from wearing a Cartier watch, which I've been lucky enough to have, has been a really grand experience and has opened my eyes. And I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank the Wristwatch Project on Instagram. He is a top gent, and he's loaned this in free of charge. All I've had to do is buy him a coffee, and he's been a top man for it. He's actually a software consultant by trade, but he's set up this business trading watches. He's out of Sheffield, he's VAT registered, and the website goes live next month, guys. So if you're looking to buy or sell in North of England, get in touch with him. He's an absolute gent. So the stats on this watch are pretty comfortable as well. It's got 100 metres of water resistance there. It's the caliber 1840 MC. Now that is an in-house movement made by Cartier. Only 42 hours of power reserve, so not amazing. It is a self-winding movement. It's got the quick switch capabilities, which are really good. And it's got a butterfly clasp, which is actually really comfy, really delicate. You don't notice it's there, but there's no micro adjustment, and I just about get away with this. Now, don't get me wrong, I do suffer from a little bit of wrist jangle, and I have messed around with the links and put a link out, but because you don't get the half links, it's either super tight, and when you tighten your wrist like that, you can feel it, you know, it's too tight. So I've had to put a link in. There's no in-betweens, and I do get a bit of jangle, and because, and I hate jangle, I'll be honest, but because it's so thin of a profile watch and it's relatively light, I get away with it and it's still comfortable. And for me, the fact that I can not enjoy the jangle, but accept it and it not be a distraction or an annoyance is a massive, massive selling point for me. And this watch, this or the two-tone version, is top of my list right now, and it's going to take some knocking off. The dial itself is, as I say, it's a glorious, deep, rich blue, plays with the light really well. And while on the white version of this watch, the Roman numerals are just printed, these are applied markers. So a little bit more luxurious, I feel, applied markers. At whatever level of watch, if they've got applied markers, especially when they're like this, high polish, I think they're a little bit more luxurious. As I said, it's still difficult to read. I'm just looking at the watch now, and you have to focus a little bit more than you want. Now, that might annoy some people, the clarity of a dial, a nice design, that can sell a watch all on its own. But for me, this is more than just telling time and looking at the dial kind of watch, if that makes sense. And just touching on that comfort and reliability again, for me, it's a real winner. It's lighter than your average stainless steel watch. The comfort is there, even though the dimensions of it, because it's a 40mm and it's a square watch, that usually means it's a bigger than a 40mm round watch. It is, but the comfort is there. The drape of the bracelet just goes around my wrist incredibly well. It's just incredibly well made and looks the part, to be honest. So those dimensions, as I say, it says it's a 40mm watch, but I make it actually 37.5 across the case. If I take into consideration the crown and the lugs, that is where I get my 39.7, which is your 40mm. And then across diagonally, depending on which way you measure it and whereabouts you measure it, it's about 45, 47mm. So a little bit of playing the measurements of what you get online and what I've actually physically got there. But the measurements don't mean that much. If you can try a watch on, you can look down and you're happy with it and you're comfortable with it. I think you've got to try a watch on and experience it. And I've been lucky enough to try this on for an extended period before I decide buying it. And for me, everyone should be allowed to do that when buying a watch, because usually within a week you've figured out, shit, this isn't for me. Other measurements to consider are the thickness at only a crazy 9.5mm, absolutely outstanding. The lugs are a 21mm and it tapers down to 18mm. Now, to be fair, every watch has negatives if you look hard enough for them, and this one is no different. And I'd have to say it is actually the bezel. Is it a bezel? It's just like the surrounding of the case is highly, highly polished, and that's a big part of the watch, what makes the watch that classic design. But it is just a scratch magnet. It's really, really bad for it. It's a smudge magnet, it's a fingerprint magnet, and it's whether you can live with it or not. Now, on, for example, a Rolex Datejust, that highly polished center links are prone to the finger marks and scratching as well. But the only polished bits on this watch are actually the little screws on the bracelet. So it gives a little bit more glam, but without the high scratching possibility that the bezel is capable of. So that for me is a bit of a negative, but I wouldn't change it because I feel it makes the watch as well, if that makes sense. The actual readability of the watch, again, is probably a negative for me, but as I say, I don't think it would make me not want to buy the watch, the readability on this occasion. Things like the Pelagos or the Speedmaster, that clarity of dial, I love that design, love that clean, fresh look. But for this, it's not the end of the world. It just seems to work because it is it's a high-end luxury item. So there's quite a few versions of the Santos that you can buy, and this at £6,250, possibly the pick of the bunch. The applied markers, the blue dial, a little bit out of the norm for them. They usually go down the printed dial with the white, and that is the classic version. They do that in the white, again the same price as the blue, or they do it in a medium, which is £5,700. Now for me, the medium, maybe on pictures close up, it might look a better size, but when you actually physically look at it and wear it, it's definitely too small for me. I feel that in my head. To other people looking at it, it won't make a jot of difference. So for me, it has to be a large, and it's a tough pick, to be honest. I definitely have the white dial. I definitely have the blue dial. I definitely have the two-tone as well. So any one of them is just going to look $1 million on my wrist. So I'm really, really excited that I've had this opportunity to experience a Cartier properly. Now, when I say properly, I've been sat on the couch watching football, trying it on, but that's been enough. It's been an extended period of time. And for me, it's one of the best watches in the world. That is a big claim. Disclaimer here, that's my opinion. My opinion means shit. You go out and find the own watches that you like. Right, guys, what do you think of the Cartier Santos? Is it a watch that you'd buy? Have you considered it? Is the large too big? Is the medium too small? Decisions. What a classic. Right, guys, I'll see you in the next one.